on this episode of The Journey. BB and I had a conversation, and he brought up a good point. And we were talking about how we got started. Like, so many things go into owning a hound and hound hunting that basically this is just going to be a 101 class. You know, what does it take to own a hound? Have you thought about what it's going to take and the commitment that you're going to have from, you know, starting with your first dog, and we'll go through that on what we feel like is the best route, and all the way up to training it, finish it, to the land that you hunt. So this episode is going to be about the process. You know, the journey's about the process. We like to go from A to Z. So we're going to start walking everybody through those steps. And you guys that have been doing this for a long time, it's just a way of life for you, kind of like what it is for us. And we've learned, and we've made errors and mistakes, and we tweak and we twist, and, you know, we just go through life now like, you know, it's no big deal. But, you know, for somebody starting out, it's definitely a very big task to take on. And I think we've got a lot of good points and good information that the people that are trying to start hound hunting, this is going to be a great listen for you guys. So I've got BB with me, Brent. I don't know why I just call you BB all the time, but I got BB with us again. He's the one that brought this up, so that's who I'm going to talk to about it, because he was the one that brought it to my attention through a conversation. So how's everything down east today, B?
Oh, it's doing good. We had a good little race this morning.
I seen that. I'm a little jealous.
And then he walked and bathed for about an hour with two 2-year-olds and a 1-year-old. So, and then some other puppies. So, yeah.
Nice. And I knew exactly where you were at too. I was like, oh man, come on now. Yeah, but getting those young dogs out, and was Doug running today?
Yeah, he brought two dogs.
Yeah. Well, good. You know, I'm envious. Like, I know I couldn't get down there this week, but not this coming week, but the week after, if the weather's not too bad, hopefully I'll be back for a couple of days, and we can get after them and at least get them in the right direction. We get mine in the right direction, because after the last trip, I realized that mine are a little bit out of shape, and the young dog, the puppy, and I call them puppies, they're the year-old dogs. That's really, I had them down there last October, but they were 7 months old. You know, they're over a year old now, and, you know, that terrain's just different. Like, when I got home, and again, I'm going to shout out to the OneTDC. I did not have my dogs on it right now, and when I got home, two of my young dogs, their front joints were swelled up. And I mean, they looked like they'd been through a buzzsaw in the front end where they gotten all them briars.
Yeah, they can pick them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was tough. And I thought to myself, next time, I'll get them back on the OneTDC probably the first of this coming week, and have them on it for a week or so before I get back down there, because it does make a big difference in the dogs. And like I said, I kind of felt bad when I got home, and Attica, man, she was swelled up. And I'm like, I could have prevented that, and I just didn't. So that was on me. But, well, good. So I'm just going to start this out with a brief. I'll do it as brief as I can. I know I've talked about it on previous podcasts, but I'm just going to kind of give a breakdown of how I started, what a lot of the stuff that I didn't know. And, you know, it took me about 10 years to get the equipment that I needed, to get headed in the right direction. And I had a pretty good mentor at that time, and we'll definitely talk about that as we go on. But anyway, so everybody knows that a buddy of mine had shot a bear up on a lease that we had. And at the time, you know, I was dating my wife, my first wife. I know, and dogs has caused 2 divorces, guys. So just that's how it is. I laugh about it, but my first wife and her roommate, Porter, had bear dogs, and we had went out to dinner a couple times and talked about it. And I was a big hunter. Don't get me wrong, man. I stayed in the woods. I was an avid bow hunter. I loved to bow hunt, and spring turkey was my other favorite. And I did deer hunt, but those two are the things that I like to do the most. And so one of my buddies shot a bear. We called Porter to come track the bear because we couldn't find it. And he come rolling up the next day, which we was like, why is he waiting? Like, get on it now. I need you to come over now. And he was like, nah, man, we'll be over tomorrow. And I'm like, no. So he rolls up in this big black Ford 250 diesel. Back then, the extended cabs weren't a big commodity. Dogs hanging out of that thing. He had a full-size dog box across the back of it. It was a topper, basically. And I don't know how many dogs he had with him, but he rolled out of there, and we went down the holler where he shot the bear. The dogs blowed up, barking, carrying on. And at that instant, I was hooked. Like, it was done. Like, that's all it took. And I bought 2 dogs off of him, 2 plot dogs. That were my first 2 dogs. And I just done it on a whim. Like, it got me so excited. I was already a hunter, and I just jumped in and bought 2 dogs. And I went to my granddad's and got 2 dog houses that he used to have, and I tied them up above the barn at my dad's. I still lived at home, and that's how my journey started. And as we go through this process, I didn't have a light. I tried to coon hunt those dogs, and that was a complete disaster. I didn't have tracking collars, and that was another complete disaster. And, until I bought my Brandy female, which was the dog that I won plot days with and won a lot of other hunts with, those 2 dogs were Me Too dogs. Like, if your dog run a deer, they'd run a deer. If your dog run a tree coon, they'd run a tree coon. If your dogs treat a bear, they'd run and tree a bear. But they weren't, and I didn't know any better. Like, I chased them scoundrels all over the area, Giles County, Virginia, more than one night. And it wasn't until I got Brandy and started hunting, and that was about a year. It was probably a year or two, a year or so after I had bought those dogs. And then that's when I had kind of got up with my mentor, and, Pappy, I call him Pappy, Dale Breeden. He started giving me pointers, and I went to school with Tommy, his son, and that's kind of how we hooked up. And, Dale kind of took me under his wing and, showed me the ins and outs. But I done a lot of hunting by myself, a lot of trial and error, and that's how I got started. There was no preparation. There was no planning. It's just dogs barked, I got excited, and I purchased 2 dogs. That was the beginning of my journey. So we are going to try our best to deter you from doing that and having a plan in place, because BB was exactly the opposite of what I done. So BB, tell us your beginning.
Yeah, so I grew up with my grandfather, and he had anywhere from 10 to 20 deer dogs at the time since I was a little kid, and I hunted with him every Saturday. I mean, carried a BB. Before I carried a BB gun, I carried a stick. So I was all the time with him. So I had been exposed to the dog world a little bit more. So I would always ride with him to a local guy here that was right up the road. He was a black gold dealer. So when the truck would come in, I would go and help, move a pallet of dog food, because my grandfather would buy a pallet of dog food at a time. So then there was always the hunt club dues and things like that. A lot of times the dog drivers would get a discounted hunt club due. So I knew there was a cost associated with it. Fast forward, I'd always wanted a coon dog, and then I got the opportunity to go bear hunting for the first time when I was a sophomore in college. And when I did that, I, just was hooked from that. Killed my first bear and just saw, what I would consider the pinnacle of dog work, that I had ever seen compared to the deer hunting world. Things have gotten a little bit better now with the alphas and things, but what it did is it made me really think, how would I get into the bear dogs? How could I do it? So I put a post on UKC and started coon hunting up at Virginia Tech when I was there, 3, 4, 5 nights a week with some mutual friends. And then I looked at into purchasing my first coon dog. Now the first coon dog was a plot, and that was a little bit not thought out and planned out as well. And it was a young dog. He wasn't a puppy, but he was a young dog, and he was green. He hadn't been started. I think the guy said he was running rabbits in the yard and stuff. But anyway, so moving on, I'd hunted the dog pretty hard. Window bond. He let me keep the dog up at his house while I was up at school. And then I could hunt him, so it worked out perfect.
Did that plot dog come from here?
No, it came from Asheville, North Carolina. Yeah. And like I said, he would just run a track and then hit a tree and then backtrack it.
Yeah.
But then I had actually gotten my grandfather's, because at that time he had kind of slowed off on the deer hunting. So I actually had his wildlife box and the beep beeps. So I actually started hunting with the beep beep. And before that, when I was a kid, we used to have my grandfather had an old 7.3 liter diesel Ford, and we would ride the paths, and the dogs would come out of the woods through that diesel motor. We'd look behind us a lot of times and see them following behind us. But we burning many a gallon of diesel fuel looking for dogs back then. But anyhow, so yeah, started with the wildlife box. So moving forward, graduated and then got my first dog. And kind of the rest is history. She turned out to be one of those once in a lifetime type dogs for me, coon hunting. But my intention with coon hunting, getting back to the topic, was I always had the intention of coon hunting leading into the bear dog world. I got to see dog work. I got to practice handling dogs, and it just gave me a better idea to accomplish that goal, I feel like, and help me prepare for getting into the bear dog world.
Yeah, and I want to go back a little bit, but you and I both just had that conversation that I didn't know anything about bear hunting either, and once I got my coon dog, that's when I really started learning dogs, and it took me a long time because I would have loved to have Brandy now with the knowledge that I have now, but she taught me a lot. Of course, Pappy taught me a lot about learning to read the dog and, listen to the different barks and stuff like that. So that kind of segued me into the bear world. I wanted to bear hunt from the start, but I wasn't sure how to do it because I didn't have a plan. I just started acquiring dogs and, going with anybody that would let me go. But you know how it is, like, us bear hunters are cliquish. Like, if you ain't part of our group, you just don't walk in and, say, hey, I want to come hunting with you. Oh, yeah, sure, come on. We're not that way. So it took a while for me to get in with some people to do that. And at the same time, here I am, a young man with, worthless dogs, really, if you want to be honest about it. I mean, like I said, if yours would run a bear, they'd go with you. But, and how the older guys look at that, they're like, I don't want to be chasing his dogs all day. And they didn't. Like, that was on me. Like, spent many days chasing dogs. And they don't like you messing up the races either. That's a part of it. So the coon hunting really was my foundation. That's what taught me what to look for. And before we back up, like I was very fortunate to have some of the quality, like you said about Autumn, having some of the quality dogs that I had without knowing anything about dogs. I mean, Brandy, like phenomenal hound. She had some holes, absolutely. She was not perfect, but I was able to win a lot of hunts with her, have a lot of good times, a lot of memories, like we talked about before, with that hound. And then, I bred her. I raised some pups out of her that was super nice, and then I ended up getting a Walker dog from Pappy that was a Sackett Junior bred dog, and I was learning then, and he was a super nice dog. Was able to finish him out really quick with him. And then that's kind of when I was bear hunting the whole time, but that's kind of when the bear hunting really took a hold. But maybe let's get the audience up to that point. What are some things that we need to look at before we ever get the dog? Because I didn't look. I didn't even ask my dad. I just brought him home, and he had that like, "Are you kidding me?" look on his face, because they were going on. Of course we had a land, and we had a farm and had horses and a barn and stuff. So I was able to put the dogs back out of the way where they weren't a bother. But I didn't even ask. I just did it. So what was some things? Where do you guys start? What are we going to start with?
I mean, we might as well start with somewhere to keep them.
Yep.
At the house, how do you intend on housing them? Whether it's going to be chain, kennels, crating them in at night and letting them out during the day or something like that. I don't, and then the laws that are applicable in your location or like locality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and I'll kind of run through that on the law enforcement side of it. The county that I live in, out in the county, there is no barking dog. There's no noise ordinance. But now in town limits where I work, there is. And it would be almost impossible to live in my jurisdiction with multiple dogs like you and I do and not be complained on pretty much 24/7, because the law allows that to happen. Like from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, or 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. The noise ordinance is lax, but at 10 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning, it's pretty strict. So that would change things if you lived in an urban environment instead of the rural communities like you and I live in. Something else that you had to think about real quick is dog tags. Like our county requires it. So every time I go to the vet, give a dog a rabies shot, they send a slip to the county, the board of supervisors, the county, and then they send me a bill for that dog, which I have a kennel license, so it changes for me. But I think those tags are $12, $13, $14 a piece. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see where I live. I mean, when I was up at the farm, we had a neighbor that was a mile away that called and complained about the dogs one time when I was actually on travel for work. And, I usually, when I'm there, I can have a little better handle on making them be quiet. But anyway, so yeah, we've had that happen before. I mean, I've had that happen before. And, that turned into an animal control inspection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything was good to go. I mean, I had a kennel license and rabies certificates and everything like that. So it wasn't a big deal. And actually from that, I actually went and met the neighbors where it came from, because I did a FOIA request to get the call in.
Yep.
And found out who it was. And actually the owner of the property, he was apologetic because they actually had an Airbnb, and it was customers of the Airbnb who were out drinking late at night and ended up being drunk and called. So that's how that played out. But now we have a good relationship. If there's any issues, he'll just give me a call, or if some of his livestock gets out, I give him a call. So it works out good.
Yep. Well, that's building that relationship with the people around you. But, yep. So housing, where you live, is definitely the first thing you have to take consideration. And like you said, can you legally tie your dog out? I know we talked about that. Chris and Chad and them had talked about that on one of their podcasts about tethering a dog. And can you or can you not? Mine and your dogs. You have a couple on runs, but we have kennels for ours, and that's just the way I prefer to do it. It's easier for me with my setup. So how are you going to house the dog if you are going to acquire one? Yeah, neighbors are a thing. I mean, that's a huge thing. And then you got to look. Well, I guess the next step would be equipment, right?
Well, I mean, another thing to think about too is, before we leave the housing, of a dog is, well, who's going to look after them if you're not there or have to travel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge thing, especially, I mean, for me, I have to travel for work a decent amount. So, luckily I have a good neighbor, who I can pay to take care of the dogs, and she's real familiar with taking care of dogs, but, making sure that you have somebody that you trust to look after the dogs. And then, I mean, I'm a little paranoid, so I always have a buddy of mine stop by sometime during the time frame that I'm gone, just to make sure everything looks right, and make it clear that if they see something wrong and have questions, to reach out to me and ask. Because if there's something like I've had some like puppies, if you don't watch them real close, they can get wormy and pulled down quick or something like that. So that's something else you got to really be thinking about is because there are going to be times that you're going to be gone.
But family vacation, or you and I travel. We have to travel some for work. Our jobs require it. So that is a huge factor, and it's even worse for me because I have police dogs and nobody wants around them. So I have another canine handler that lives just 2 miles down the road where I live right now. But if I move, that may not be the case, and it may not be as easy for me, especially. But and another thing that you and I run into is the number of dogs we have. Like, it's a chore. Like, I tell everybody I'm going home to do chores. Oh, you live on a farm? No, I just got 55 dogs. Not really, but I got a whole herd of dogs. So, it takes me, and I've got it down to a science, just like you do. But it takes me 35, 45 minutes in the evening, or whenever I do my stuff. If I feed, I water, I clean pens, I make sure everything's taken care of. Like, it takes me that long. And just like you said, every time I go out of town, something flipping happens. Like, dog jumps out of the pen, or, I've had dogs climb out of the pen and get hit in the road while I was gone. And that's horrible. I've had accidental breedings when I've been gone, because I tend to double dogs up sometimes, especially in the winter, because I want that more the body heat and stuff, so I double them up. So you have stuff like that happens when you're always out of town. So that's a huge, huge factor for sure.
Yep.
So equipment. So my first, I don't even know what kind of leads I had. I probably had some rope that I tied up or something, and then my dad gave me my granddad's old mining lights, his old wheat lights, and I had 2 of those. And you had to keep putting the water and the acid in them because they were so old they didn't work. So that was the first lights I had. And for even when I got Brandy, so I would say a year and a half into my hound hunting career, I did not have a tracking system. None. I had a collar with my nameplate on it. And that is a very cumbersome task when you turn a dog loose, especially if you got one that don't come back. You don't know what zip code you're going to find him in. And I can attest to that, because that first dog that I had was that way. And then I got Brandy, and she was valuable. Like, I could tell she was different. Like, she was treeing coons for me. I was hunting her. She was getting better and better and better each time I took her. So a buddy of mine at work had a quick track system. So I borrowed his collar from him here and there. When he wasn't hunting, he'd let me take his collar for a night or two. And if I needed the system, I'd have to go wake him up or wait till the next morning to go get it. So that was an issue. And I finally was able to get me a system. I bought a collar first, had the collar, and then I was able to get the tracking system. And, you know, back then, like we talked, BB, like I had just gotten married, you know, I had my first child. Like money wasn't on trees, you know. Everything I was making was being sunk into a new home, you know, baby diapers and formula, you know, life. So I didn't have that extra money. I just had to make do with what I had. And looking at it now, I would not recommend that for anybody because it's tough. And like I said, well, everything's changed too. I mean, yeah, that's almost been 30 years ago. So things have changed. So the tracking system was an issue. It took me a while to acquire it. I had a collar, and it took a while to get a light. And then you look at the dog box. I had to have a dog box, which I built my first one out of wood. That thing was heavy as a kitchen table. I mean, it was heavy, but that's what I had. That's what I had to use.
The Journey on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network is sponsored by onX. The most comprehensive mapping system in the world is available by going to onxmaps.com and downloading their app. Several subscription offers there. Highly recommend you using onX. And here's a true story for you. We've all got that spot where when we turn our hound loose at night, they're going to head that direction. Well, the other night, my hounds headed in a direction for that property that had recently sold. I had no idea who owned that property. I simply opened up my onX app, found the landowner information, cut the dogs off, and the next day I went to their house. And not only did I get permission to hunt there, I think I made some new friends. They are beef farmers, and they do not like raccoons running through the feed bunks, leaving their mess behind. Yeah. Go to onxmaps.com and download the app today. At checkout, make sure you use the promo code HXP20 and get 20% off. When you join us on Patreon, you will get a discount code for a deeper discount on onX Maps. Know where you stand with onX.
The Journey on Houndsman XP has teamed up with OneTDC. This dual-action support for oral health and mobility in our dogs. This unique supplement is so effective that it is recommended by top veterinarian experts worldwide to maintain and improve our dog's health in 4 different areas. Their oral health, hips, joints, and muscles, skin, coat, energy, and recovery. Guys, I've been using this product for the last 6 months, and it has been a game changer for me. If you're looking for something to help with the overall health of your dog, go to worksowell.com and give this product a try. It is highly recommended by Houndsman XP here on The Journey.
Yeah, now with the invention of social media and Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and things like that, and then also with the release of a new Alpha 300 shortly after the 200 was released, if somebody's looking to get into the hunting, there's a lot of options for very good quality equipment at a reasonable, at a lesser price. So, like Garmin's older type collars, used collars. Used collars you got to be a little careful with because that antenna wire will break for the GPS. But there's a huge, there's a lot of inventory out there right now. If you just go look on Facebook Marketplace, I remember was it last week or when the Alpha 300s dropped? Just the numbers of collars and alphas that were being put on Facebook Marketplace was kind of comical.
They skyrocketed.
if somebody's if somebody's looking into it, they can always do that secondhand option,
right.
And even with dog boxes, there's always dog boxes up there. Now they tend to hold their value a little better for those aluminum type boxes, but there are still used stuff and equipment that's out there. Lights, I hadn't seen as much of the lights out, and around, but it's hard to beat a good quality light for sure.
Yeah, and you're giving really good advice. Like you can always get what you can afford. And I mean, I know some guys that are still using the 300, the 320s. I mean, they haven't even upgraded from the 320 to the 100. And I still carry my 100. Like that's the tracker that I have, the 200. I don't have the 300 yet, but I carry the 100 with me all the time, and I guess I'm just used to it and whatever. And I don't have no problem. It works. So for me, it's not. I don't feel like right this second that I need to go. I don't even know what the 300s are, what $800, $900. I do like that the collar on the new TT25s are smaller. I do like that. It's should be a little bit lightweighter, make it a little easier on dogs. But yeah, so. Got to have a place to put them, and you got to start looking at some equipment, whether it be, whatever kind of tracking system you can find and afford. You can find a dog box, like you said. You can go on Facebook Marketplace, or you can find a hand-me-down or used box, which if I was going to start, that's probably where I'd start into it. And then your vehicle, that's something else. But I think we left out some important stuff that we probably should backtrack on real quick.
Oh yeah, there's always just general medical maintenance type stuff like dewormers and certain things that you're going to have with a dog, whether it's some kind of an ear cleaner or something like that if you have a dog that gets bad ear infections, or trying to think of some, heartworm medication, tick medication is another, or whether you choose to go topical or do like the Bravecto pill. There's, a whole bunch of, I'm just actually looking here on my equipment, workbench here for all my dog stuff, and you got radios. I got radios, that I use hunting. Let's see, what else is up there? Was that Tough Foot stuff? Stuff for feet. if they're running them, if you're running them hard, they blow out a pad or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of things that just through necessity. Usually it's one of the things when something happens, you'll purchase something to try and help resolve it, whether it's some kind of wound care stuff or something like that as well.
Yeah, I'm on. Me and you have kind of the same setup. I have a workbench downstairs. It's got all my chargers on it, and I keep my dog food over on the side of it. But then, I mean, it's got you're right. I've got all my medicines. I mean, I've got dogs are protected. The pad coat. I've got the hydrate, the system, from Dogs Retreat. Of course, we use those products. The OneTDC. And like I said, that's not counting your yearly, your yearly boosters. Like I said, you can get by with the rabies every 3 years after your initial one. So that costs kind of, but then you got to look like some vets. Like you go to get a rabies shot, and I just want a rabies shot. They charge you that office fee, which it used to be $35. I don't know what it is now. It's probably double that. But yeah, so you have fees, and you and I talked about this before, BB. Like if you're going to hunt a dog, I don't care if it's a coon dog or a bear dog. More likely with a big game hound, whether it be hogs or bear or lion or bobcat or whatever, like the dogs are going to sustain some injuries. Like you said, even if it's just tearing a pad or tearing a toenail off, so on and so forth, or getting, for us, getting cut sometimes, getting some puncture wounds. like I said it before, even when I was competition hunting, I was up in Ohio, and Brandy run through a barbed wire fence, and that barbed wire literally looked like you took a razor blade and went from her shoulder down to her back hip and filleted her open. Nothing but the skin, did not touch the meat. But she had a pile of staples in her for a long time trying to make that heal. So, that's even with your coon dogs.
Yep.
So,
yeah, you definitely never know when you're going to turn them, what'll happen when you turn them loose. But yeah, I mean, as far as other just general equipment, depending on what your goal is and what you're hunting, you got to have your boots, your clothing, depending on your terrain. Also, your gun if you're taking anything.
Hunting license.
Hunting licenses, that's another big one. To make sure you got everything covered there. I mean, in the truck, something I always have with me is, I got one of those electric chainsaws now that's usually rides in the truck in the toolbox. And then, during bear season, I have a gas powered capstan winch, so there's all kinds of gear that you can acquire throughout your starting process. But you'll find yourself in situations potentially where some of those things are really nice to have. Machetes, that's another perfect example of something that's nice to have.
Yeah, especially in your terrain. I'm putting it back in my truck. Yeah. And, you talk about the terrain. Like, what I wear with you is completely different than what I wear here. Like, we'll just kind of give y'all guys a breakdown a little bit. I mean, you're talking about just the difference in the clothing. You need the briar bit breeches or the chaps because you don't get into them. I'm wearing rubber boots. I'm wearing my muck boots down there most of the time because we're in water. And, leather gloves.
Yep.
The gloves.
Leather gloves are a must down here for sure.
And then for me, like, I mean, I can just wear regular, I wore I wore Carhartts for a long, long time. And I've switched over a little bit and wear some different stuff now because of the base layers. But like, I can't get when I wear my good stuff to your place, it shreds them. Like it does, it shreds them. And I don't wear my boots down there either because I don't want them waterlogged nonstop because that's what you're going to get. So yeah, difference in the terrain. And so we left out one of the major factors: dog food. If you're feeding one dog, you can buy a good quality food, for for what, $40-$60 a bag. I would say that would be the range, right?
I would say you can still get I think something quality for just over 30. But I would say anywhere from 30 to 60 is definitely
the mid range. Yeah, where you'll be at. Yeah.
Yeah.
So dog food. If you're feeding one dog, basically the rule of thumb is 150-pound bag per month per dog. If you're feeding multiple dogs, you start breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down. I mean, I buy mine by the pallet because it's just cheaper for me to buy it in bulk. So dog food is another. That's a weekly or monthly expense. So that's something you have to definitely take into consideration when you think about that.
And storage, and if you're going to buy in bulk,
Yes.
storing it, making sure it's in a place where rodents can't get into it and it's kept dry.
Correct.
Because I've run into issues with that buying bulk as well.
So, all right, we've decided where we're gonna house a dog, where we live. Can I have one dog, or can I get a couple dogs? I live out in the country. We've got us some equipment. We got us a tracker we can keep up with the dog. We got us an old dog box. We definitely have a vehicle that we can get around in. Now we need a dog.
Yeah. The dog would help. Something that I was thinking about that as far as getting a dog and stuff like that, and it depends on a person's experience. hopefully if you've been acquiring equipment, right, or already have some of this stuff and you're thinking about it, hopefully you've been, either looking or trying to communicate with some other folks out there, whether it's a mentor situation or just talking to some folks and tagging along on a hunting, to go hunting with them. And I think that doing so, if you're able to find that mentorship or the mentor, and then or have a base group of folks or houndsmen that you can kind of communicate with, will definitely aid you in the looking for a dog process. Starting out, if somebody doesn't have much experience with a dog or a hunting dog, I would definitely recommend not getting a puppy and not getting a young dog that's so-called started. I would start off with something that's maybe a little older, or old, really, and is pretty much broke, just to start to learn that process and how to hunt that dog, and then maybe you could step in, if you have that broke dog, that might help you step into that puppy down the road. But I think that's one of the most common mistakes that I see folks do, is they get this itch, they want to get into bear hunting or coon hunting. In coon hunting, I would say you have maybe a better chance of getting a puppy that is a natural. You just got to have the go out there and let that dog figure it out, or set him up in situations where to help him figure it out. Big game, it's a little different than that. It can be done with big game, but it's a little bit harder just because of there's not as many, just population. There's just not as much a big population as, say, a coon would be. So getting that repetitions and experience is difficult when you're trying to start a young dog, without that older dog in that situation. But yep, that'd be my recommendation, is to definitely start with an older, solid dog with whatever you're trying to get into.
Yeah, and I know that I think me and Chris and Mark Dufresne had this conversation, and I think Mark said the same thing. Do not start out with a puppy if you don't know anything. And then you and I had this conversation to kind of follow up on that. I feel like that if you are going to coon hunt, it would be easier to train a dog by yourself. I mean, we can watch videos and read books and talk to people, and you can take a dog, and if the dog's got enough genetic promise, that you're just going to have to give him opportunity. Where bear hunting is a little different, by far. You're chasing two different animals, and it's just different. So, but I think what you're saying is right. And, if you're going to get into coon hunting, you could probably get away with a good young starter dog going with somebody that has a nice dog, but you're going to depend on them for a little bit. If things don't line out for you. And then, if you're getting into bear hunting, you definitely want to go with some people that know what they're doing, because, I have talked about it before on this podcast. Catching a bear by myself was, it was difficult. It was really difficult. And I had been hunting for several years. And I had an old dog named Frosty, and I could go hunting with somebody else, and that dog looked good. I mean, he always run up front. He always trailed and opened right when the dogs did, or maybe a little bit before, or right there with them. Rough Bear didn't run him off, but he never got himself tore up. He was one of those dogs. Yeah. But it took me a long time to tree a bear by myself, and that was a feat. I mean, it was not something that just happened. I just didn't luck up. But then again, back then we didn't have the population of bear we have now either. So that's a whole other topic, another story for another day. But yeah, I would suggest the same thing. If you could buy an older dog that can kind of teach you or show you, or get you in the right direction, that would be my recommendation too. And then if you wanted to upsize and get you a young started dog, because I will tell you, I train dogs professionally. That's my job. Like, I train dogs to put out here in the communities to find narcotics, explosives, weapons, evidence. I train tracking dogs that are to to find people, that's my specialty because of the hounds. That's what I really enjoy. And I've trained dogs to apprehend and hold people. And I have messed up more hounds than I ever have police dogs. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand behavior. I didn't understand what drives a dog. So staying away from that puppy to begin with is solid advice.
Yeah, it's one thing that the hounds will teach you is patience for sure. And I have to remind myself about it a whole lot. So, you really have to be patient, because you're going to get aggravated, and especially more so if you're new and maybe not understanding exactly this whole situation. And I'm not saying that I understand the whole situation, because if I, with a dog, when it comes to a dog, because if I did, I would have a whole lot better dogs than what I do. But a lot of it is admitting to yourself that you don't know, and then also putting the dedication in to keep going. I don't know how many folks that I know of that have gotten frustrated and that they just burn out, or they don't go enough. They get frustrated and then they don't go, and they kind of take a break or whatever, and then they get frustrated the next time they go because they hadn't been hunting to begin with. So definitely, if the overall goal for a person, I think, is to get into having a pack of bear hounds, I would say it's solid advice to start coon hunting. And maybe potentially, start there, learn a dog, learn to hunt, and hunt hard enough to keep a dog up and in shape, because one dog or two dogs is easy. If you multiply that and multiply that by 3 and have 6 dogs, 8 dogs, or it can even go up higher. Having that many dogs and then having them and keeping them in shape and up to snuff and in running, shape is very hard. You have to, it's how I look at it is I want to go, but at the same time I make myself go too, because I know for me to have what I want with my goals, you got to hunt them hard. They're just they're just like an athlete.
Well, I think that just kind of segues into the next step is the commitment do you have? Are you going to be able to hunt? Let's just start back with the coonhound. Are you going to be able to hunt 2 or 3 nights a week? Or are you going to be able to hunt 2 nights a month? And if it's 2 nights a month, then maybe you should go with a buddy that's got a hound. Like, really. And then, let's talk about bear hunting. Different states have different seasons. That's why I travel a lot. I mean, even if like I said, I can get down and hunt, with you guys for 2 days, that's 2 days that I can't hunt here. And I can't, I can get my dogs off, piggyback off you guys a little bit because y'all been running, knock the dust off mine, keep their mind pointed in that direction, bear odor. And, but I got to travel to do that. I have to travel. And, so the commitment, are you going to be a part-time hunter? And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. because there's been times in my life that I've been a part-time hunter because of my life, because of marriage and kids and work, that, you know, every other weekend on Friday and Saturday night was it. Or, you know, bear hunt, you know, when I first started bear hunting, that was another thing, you know, the job that I worked, I was only allowed 2 weeks vacation. Well, 1 week of that was spent with the family at the beach. And then the other week, which is 5 days, I took off during bear season, and I had to do a day or two in training season and a day or two in kill season. Tried to take the first week of kill. So, that commitment, how much are you going to be able to hunt? How much time are you going to be able to spend? Then we get into one of the other biggest things, BB, is location. This was a big thing for you.
Yeah. So where you're going to hunt is when it comes to the big game world, any game now, I would say, is getting smaller and smaller. So yeah, are you going to be close to that population that you're looking to hunt with the dog? Do you have a good coon population close by? And then do you have access and permission to hunt that land? Is it public, private, and things like that? Here, I'm paying, hunting club leases and different things like that, because most of the stuff here is private. So that's a tremendous amount that you have to really dedicate to just have the access and everything. And then also I've been, pretty blessed with the mentor I have, Doug, and the access that having that mentorship gives me. So with him, so, I'm fortunate here. Now I would imagine out west it might be a little different, with just, more federal land or public land. But at the same time too, a lot of the guys out west drives, I think they drive, they might drive a whole lot further out there to get to where they hunt. So they're still traveling. I mean, for me, I'll travel. I'll go to Maine every year. Used to go to Ontario. Then I'm hunting, Virginia and North Carolina as well. And I'd be open to go hunt. I mean, I hunt in the middle part of the state as well when that season comes in. So it's definitely one of those things where, opportunities and having a huntable population somewhere. Because, for me, if they don't have a bear, it's really no point in me hunting there, So, and a lot of people, they say they see a bear there in the summertime, and, summertime is when the crops are in the field, so while you might have all this great crop land to hunt, the wintertime, and if all that crop had been picked 2 months prior, they've already, moved back into those big river bottoms and things like that. And especially in the central part of the state, it's probably one of the biggest places I've seen that, where they actually move. So if you miss that time frame that they're in that location, that access that you might have to that land doesn't do you any good, because that population is transient and has moved to a different location.
Yeah. And for me, like, I'm kind of on the different end of the spectrum. I have to hunt national forest mostly. Our private land here, only your dairy farms or your big farms have that type of land. And if they're cattle farms, most of them's cut most of the trees. So that changes the dynamics of the terrain. So I hunt national forest. And I've always felt this way, and I feel this way. I live in one of the best places in the world because I can go in the woods, I can get on the creeks, I can get on the river, and I can do all that from my house. I do have to drive, and when I drive to hunt, it takes me a little over an hour, no matter which direction I go, to get to where I hunt, where I live now. And BB, things have changed over the 30 years I've been doing this, especially in the last 10 years, the uptick of bear hunting groups. So then we got to look at etiquette. Okay, so Okay, you got a dog and you're going hunting. And if you're hunting, like for you, it's a little different because y'all can kind of keep in and out because of the private land. Like for me, it's national forest. Everybody and their brother, like anybody from any state, anywhere can come and hunt where I hunt. Like it's not mine. I don't own it. I mean, they pay a license, they buy a license, they can come and hunt there. So I can go to my favorite spot in the morning and somebody already be piled up in it and running or taking dogs down, down the path, whatever. So that's something else you have to think about when you're acquiring a dog. Coon hunting's a little different. Most of your coon hunters hunt farms and farmland, and I mean, I did hunt. I coon hunt a national forest quite a bit actually, but so that's something that you have to take into consideration. Are you going to be able to find land leases like what you have? Are you going to have to hunt national forest like I do? And if you're out west, I mean, what is that situation like for you in that state or that area that you do hunt? So that's a huge. Having the dog is probably the main thing, and then I think that is probably the second thing for me is the territory.
Yeah, and Virginia is a little different, and North Carolina is a little different too. And then, just another example of having that opportunity is Maine. A lot of places in Maine, you almost need to be a registered Maine guide with leased bait sites or have landowner permission to run. So that's another area where it's just kind of tough for some of those folks up there who want to get into the bear dog world, just because the outfitting business is so competitive up there. It's a great opportunity if you potentially want to make it make outfitting your livelihood up there is definitely a great opportunity up there if you can get into it and find the right situation. But as far as a hobby, it's very difficult to justify and get that access, to bear hunt with dogs up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, and that's, you and I both travel. I mean, I go up north and I come down y'all's way and I hunt here and, you come here and then you go up north and you travel. So again, that goes back to your commitment. Are you going to be able to hunt? Are you going to be able to actually do the dog justice from when you either purchase it or you have it? Just putting a dog in a pen or on the chain, especially a hound, that's not what they're supposed to be doing. Like I said, they're supposed to be out and hunting. That's what they're genetically programmed for. So, well, maybe if we go to wrap this up, anything we've left out, anything that we haven't touched base with, I mean, we can kind of run back through it real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, the mentor, if you're able to find a good mentor, it used to be the UKC forums were real popular, but with other things and social media now, it might be a little bit easier to go that route if some of those mentors might be starting to use or be familiar with Facebook and use it, or Instagram or things like that, or GoWild. That might be a good place. But for somebody that's looking for a mentor, you're going to have to understand too that a lot of times a good mentor is very honest about your dog and evaluating your dog. If whatever you decide to choose, you might not agree with them, but it's definitely worth the input they provide can definitely provide some value to you in the long run if you choose to heed it, if you choose to use it. So that's one thing for sure that I would say that is kind of can be a little tough when having a mentor sometimes. And then too, it's not going to be easy. There might be several times that you have to really help out and maybe not bring a dog or not even have a dog yet, and show, that you're willing to be in there and help lead a dog out or go, if it's, help him around, help him around doing whatever, I guess you could call it almost like a vetting process, to a degree. But there's definitely time that you're going to have to invest into it to build a relationship in order to get that mentorship, for sure.
Yeah. I think, I wouldn't be where I'm at, even in my job or in my hunting career, or even on this podcast, if I hadn't built relationships and be mentored by people that, I think that's very important, is finding, if you can find, and I'm pretty sure we're just kind of reiterating what we had said before, is, find somebody who will take you under their wing and do the extra work, lead their dogs, go feed their dogs when they're out of town or they're sick, go take care of them. They see you putting in the work and they know how hard it is because they're doing it every day, then they're probably going to be more apt to pull you in and help you. Mentors are important. Dog selection, I know you and I talked about that, is huge in the beginning because it will make or break you. I mean, I was just too hard-headed and dumb to know any better. Like, really, I kept 2 dogs that were not even mediocre and chased them scoundrels around in the woods for hours and hours and hours and days because I didn't know any better. I just didn't know any better. So, selection is good. If you can afford an older dog that still has a couple good years left in it and can teach you the ropes, I think that's phenomenal. And I kind of go back to that, like that book that Ed Vance wrote, Trained by a Hound. Like, Brandy and Frosty taught me more about hunting coons and bear than anybody. As far as like, I was doing it by myself. I was hunting hard. I knew where to go strike coons. I knew where to go strike bear. But the mentorship taught me about the dogs. That's what is important about the mentorship, is it'll teach you, it'll teach you things the dogs can't. So it's kind of, it's a partnership. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I would just say, just to wrap it up, one of the biggest traps is, if you go to get that puppy or something like that, and then somehow or another you end up with 2 or 3 because it was a better deal. That's never a good option either. Yep. That's always, that you could almost classify that as a trap. It's just starting out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't work out, but at the same time, training 3 puppies at one time can be multiply that time dedication that's required for one by 3. And that just shows you how much time it would take to actually give them all the fair shake. They're the same shake. So,
well, I'm doing it right now. Like I'm doing it. I got the 3 puppies out of the A litter, which are a year old, and I'm struggling. I've got one that's ahead of the other 2. I've got the second that is coming on, and I got to put some time in him. Like, I can start seeing those things that I want. And then the third one's been put on the back burner, and it's not fair to her. And I'm really battling like what I'm going to do. She hasn't had the opportunity that the one female's had, and like I said, she's not had the opportunity, and now those 2 are like moving forward, and I can't stop. You can't just stop and say, okay, I'll come back in a couple months and get y'all out after I take her out and get her started. So I'm in that situation right now, and I know, like, I train. This is what I do, but it's tough, man. It's tough, and I cannot justify I cannot give her justification. Let's just say that. I cannot do her right by taking the other two and putting her on the back burner. But then if I put them two on the back burner, I'm just setting them back. Mm-hmm. So yes, absolutely. That's really good. That's good advice.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing is just to have a goal, set your goal and then kind of develop your own plan. Mm-hmm. It's kind of overall is develop that plan and modify that plan to meet your goal. If the goal changes, don't just go into this on a whim, because it's the time required to own and have a hound, a hunting hound, is it's a lot. I mean, it's a lifestyle for sure. Some people might classify it as a hobby, but a hobby is, I don't know if you get as frustrated with some of the hobbies like we do with these hounds, but it's definitely a lifestyle is how I classify it.
Well, and BB, I think that hits the nail on the head with every houndsman. It's a way of life with them. It's a lifestyle. It's not a hobby with them. And you can't be a part-timer. You're either in or out. And I think all houndsmen who are true houndsmen who listen to this would say, yeah, like, it's a lifestyle for me. Like, a lot of most of my vacation time is revolved around hunting, trips, going here, going there, hunting dogs, whatever. Almost, and we said it on the other one podcast with Craig Koshik with the history. Everything we do is for, because, and with our dogs. Like, and it really is. I mean, we spend time with our family, but our family hunts. Like, mine are with me 85% of the time. 85% of the time, I have one or two or three of them, or all of them, with me. So yes, it's a lifestyle. It's not a part-time thing, and I think all houndsmen would resonate with that.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, we are going to wrap this up. Think about where you live. Think about how you're going to house the animal, the dog. Dog. Do you have somebody that can help you take care of it if you're pulled away for work or vacation or whatever? Think about some of the costs that you're going to incur. BB and I both have wrote down what we spent during the year, and we throwed that away because we didn't want to see it, because it makes you hurt. So you need to, you do have money in your budget to buy dog food and to buy some of the equipment you need and do the extra, the vet bills and the shots and stuff like that to provide adequate care for that hound. And then, are you going to be able to be committed? Where are you going to hunt? And do you have somebody that can take you under their wing and help you and mentor you? And I'm not saying you can't do it by yourself, because we know people that have and that do. But it may take you a little longer to get there if you do it by yourself. So I think that's it in a nutshell. And maybe it's a great topic. Like I said, I hope this helps anybody that's interested in getting a dog and starting to hunt. I hope this gives you some food for thought. And I think BB approached this the right way. He had a plan. He had an idea in mind where I did not. Man, I just went out on the limb and jumped. I just plunged off of there, and here we go. And looking at it now, I should have done things completely different, but I didn't. Here I am, almost 30 years later, and I still love it. So I was hooked that day.
Yeah.
All right, BB. I really appreciate your time this evening, and hopefully I can get down in a week after next, and we can post some cool videos. That one you posted yesterday or today of coming out of the truck, I thought that was pretty cool. So
yeah.
All right.
Now today worked out good, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm jealous. So, all right. Thank you for helping us teach, train, and learn.